The War of 1812, fought between the United States and Britain from June 1812 to February 1815, was a conflict rooted in trade disputes, territorial ambitions, and national pride. Overshadowed by the Napoleonic Wars, it shaped North America's future, involving the U.S., Britain, Canada, and Native American tribes. Often called the Second War of Independence, it ended in a stalemate but left lasting impacts. In 1812, the United States, a nation of 7.7 million, chafed under British actions. The Napoleonic Wars had turned Europe into a battleground, with Britain and France imposing trade restrictions that hurt American commerce. Britain's orders in council blockaded French ports, leading to the seizure of U.S. ships suspected of trading with France. Worse, the Royal Navy's impressment policy forcibly recruited some 6,000 American sailors by 1812, claiming they were British deserters. This violation of U.S. sovereignty enraged the public. Western and Southern war hawks in Congress, led by Henry Clay and John C. Calhoun, clamored for war. They saw a chance to annex Canada, weaken British influence, and curb support for Native American tribes resisting U.S. expansion. Tribes like the Shawnee, led by Tecumseh, had formed a confederacy, armed by Britain, to resist American settlers, encroaching on their lands. The war hawks believed defeating Britain would secure the frontier. On June 18, 1812, President James Madison, pressured by Congress, declared war. The U.S. was unprepared, with a regular army of just 12,000 men and a patchwork militia. The Navy was dwarfed by Britain's 600-ship fleet, with only 17 U.S. vessels. Britain, preoccupied with Napoleon, initially viewed the war as a sideshow, relying on Canadian militias and native allies to defend its North American colonies. The U.S. launched a three-pronged invasion of Canada, expecting an easy victory. All three failed. In the West, General William Hull surrendered Detroit to British and native forces under General Isaac Brock and Tecumseh. In the East, invasions from New York faltered due to poor coordination and militia refusals to cross the border. At Niagara, U.S. forces were repelled. The only bright spot was the U.S. Navy's early success, with ships like the USS Constitution defeating British frigates in single-ship duels, boosting American morale. In 1813, the U.S. regrouped. Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry's victory at the Battle of Lake Erie secured control of the Great Lakes, enabling General William Henry Harrison to retake Detroit and defeat British native forces at the Battle of the Thames, where Tecumseh was killed, shattering the native confederacy. In the East, however, invasions of Canada again stalled. British forces, bolstered by Canadian militias and native allies, held firm at battles like Chateauguay and Chrysler's Farm. At sea, Britain tightened its blockade, crippling U.S. trade and strangling coastal economies. By 1814, Napoleon's defeat freed British resources. Veterans from Europe poured into Canada, and Britain went on the offensive. In August, a British force landed in Maryland, defeating U.S. troops at Bladensburg and capturing Washington, D.C. They burned the White House, Capitol, and other buildings in retaliation for U.S. attacks on Canadian towns like York. President Madison fled, and the Capitol lay in ruins. However, the British failed to capture Baltimore, repelled at Fort McHenry, where Francis Scott Key, witnessing the defense, wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. On January 8, 1815, General Andrew Jackson led a diverse force of regulars, militia, free black soldiers, and Choctaw allies to a stunning victory against 8,000 British troops. The battle, fought after the peace treaty was signed due to slow communication, killed over 2,000 British and only dozens of Americans, cementing Jackson's fame. The war also saw brutal fighting in the Creek War, a related conflict in the southeast. The Creek Nation, divided between pro- and anti-American factions, faced U.S. forces led by Jackson. In 1814, Jackson's victory at Horseshoe Bend crushed the anti-American Red Sticks, forcing the Creek to cede 23 million acres in the Treaty of Fort Jackson, opening Alabama and Georgia to U.S. settlement. Peace negotiations began in 1814 in Ghent, Belgium. Both sides, exhausted, agreed to the Treaty of Ghent on December 24, 1814, restoring pre-war boundaries. No territory changed hands, and issues like impressment were ignored, as Napoleon's defeat ended the need for British naval recruitment. The treaty was ratified in February 1815, formally ending the war. The war's impact was profound. For the U.S., it fostered national pride and identity. Victories at New Orleans and Baltimore erased early humiliations, and the war produced enduring symbols like the national anthem. It also marked the decline of Native American resistance east of the Mississippi, as tribes lost British support and faced relentless U.S. expansion. The Federalist Party, which opposed the war and flirted with secession at the Hartford Convention, collapsed, ushering in Democratic-Republican dominance. For Britain, the war was a minor affair, dwarfed by European conflicts. Canada, however, emerged with a stronger sense of identity, its militias and British regulars having repelled U.S. invasions. The war solidified Canada's place within the British Empire, setting it on a path to nationhood. Britain's native allies, abandoned in the treaty, faced displacement as U.S. settlers pushed west. Militarily, the war exposed U.S. weaknesses. The Army's early failures led to reforms, professionalizing the military. The Navy, despite its small size, proved its worth, laying the foundation for future expansion. Economically, the British blockade spurred U.S. manufacturing, reducing reliance on imports and fueling the Industrial Revolution's early stages. The war's legacy is complex. It resolved none of the issues that sparked it. Impressment and trade disputes faded with Napoleon's fall. Yet, it proved the U.S. could withstand a global power, boosting confidence. For Native Americans, it was catastrophic, accelerating land loss and marginalization. In Canada, it fostered unity and loyalty to Britain. Both sides claimed victory, the U.S. for surviving, Britain for defending Canada. The War of 1812, fought over pride, trade, and land, ended ambiguously but reshaped North America. It forged national identities, shifted power dynamics, and set the stage for the U.S. to emerge as a continental power, while Canada solidified its distinct path. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.